Okay, so for today, we're going to review graphing. If you forgot slope, I'd understand. It happens all the time. But you start with the last number. And slope is the y's get subtracted over the x's get subtracted. And if you start with the last number and you try to remember that, it usually flows pretty good. 13, and then the other number is also a y, is the 7. So you go 13 minus 7. And then you go back to this number and go 8 minus 5. 13 minus 7 is 6. 8 minus 5 is 3. 6 over 3 is 2. Final answer for the slope would be 2. I want to remind you this is the rise over the run. The rise are the y's. It even rhymes. The common mistake here is people forget and they put the x's on top. There is a different formula that has x's there. This, for slope, it has y's on the top and you subtract them. All right. You obviously be able to do that slope as practice as part of your assignment. Now, it says, write a linear equation for the line that passes through the points. I thought I did all this work to get the answer. All I got was the slope. Everybody write m equals 2 underneath this problem if you haven't already. I already did it. I showed you how to do it. Hopefully you took some notes on that. But now here's the rest of it. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Write that down because if you don't know this on the test, you're going to get a couple of the final questions wrong. You have to know this to be able to do this question. So we don't give you every formula you'll ever need in life. We do give you some big ones. We give you like the quadratic formula. So better memorize this one. And even if I gave it to you, some of you wouldn't know how to use it. All right, we just figured out m is 2, so you're going to put a 2 right there. Right now, we're focusing in on this problem right here. And I'm trying to figure out what the rest of the equation is. It's called point slope. That's what this thing is, point slope. It's the point slope form of an equation. Caden? See here, keep focused, please. All right, so point slope equation. Now, that's where the point goes. Circle those two in a different color. The point that you pick is irrelevant. You can pick the first point or the second point. I'm going to choose the 5, 7. And then the 5 goes here, and the 7 goes here. There, I have just written the equation for this line. Y minus 7. I'll start writing it right over here. Y minus 7 equals 2, that was right here, times x minus 5. Could you have done that? Maybe could you do it now that I showed you that? All right, here's one where you could do that. You'd start with that equation I just gave you, y minus y1, m, x minus x1. And if you notice, this is just the same thing as the slope formula, except it's rearranged. The slope formula used to be have the x minus x1 over here, and it's just been moved over there. See? It's really just rearranged slope formula. But this is, I'm telling you, it's a big deal. If you go to pre-calc, which I'm going to be telling you probably tomorrow what your placement is for next year, like where I think you should go. And yeah, there's a few kids that I think would be better off in pre-calc, and there's a few kids I think would be better off in FST, function, stats, and trig. And it really mostly boils down to this, this kind of stuff. And the last test we just took, that you're going to get back today, if you rock that test, you belong in pre-calc. Because that was a hard test. It was really hard. But if you rock that test, you belong in pre-calc. Should you base the decision on only one thing? No. But if you did well on that test, I can say, yeah, you'll be fine in pre-calc. If you did bad on that test, then right this minute, where your skills are now, you'd do bad in pre-calc. It's just the way it is. It was a hard test, but it was all the stuff you need for pre-calc. I'm telling you, it's the same exact stuff in pre-calc, except harder. So, you don't want to be in pre-calc if your skills aren't ready for pre-calc. All right. So, I'll tell you that tomorrow. Moving on to this. If you had to graph this, do you know what this 1 is? Yes.
That is the y point?
The y-intercept. Yep. The y-intercept is 1, so I put a dot right there. And I just mentioned rise over run. Do you see it? In this problem, do you see it? I see the rise, and I see the run. All right. So I'm going to rise 4 and run 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to put my next dot right there. And then as long as you did that right, you just put a line through it and you're done. So these are pretty easy. You graph the y-intercept and then you rise and run to the right spot. What if it had been negative? There was one like that on our test. Then you go down 4. You don't rise 4, you fall 4. Do you get how that's the opposite of rise? So you'd go down 4 and run 5. All right. So this one, it doesn't even have another number. You got to know to put a 1 there. Now remember, you're not going to rise 3. You're going to fall 3. All right. Next page. And this is your homework. This thing that we're on right now, we're doing your homework. Okay? There's no other homework. It's just this. And I'm helping you start each problem. Not every problem. Yes?
Will we submit it?
Yes. This is important. See, I'm just a little nervous that some of you are going to be like, I'm kind of busy and I don't really feel like trying hard. Man, ending the year with an F on your final or even a D on your final, it's really going to bring your grade down. It counts as a whole test and there's no retake for it. So when you say, does it count? It makes me think, oh, he's not going to do it if it doesn't count. But I hope that you're going to do it either way. All right. This tells me a slope and it tells me a point. If I were you, I'd circle those two and write point. It's called slope point because it has a slope in it and it has a point in it. And that's all you need to graph. I need to point, something comma something, and I need to go where to go from there. And then this is the slope. All right, so what's my point? It is -4. Ooh, it'd been really easy to think it was 4, wouldn't it? And +2. Why are you using the opposite of the numbers? Because it's on the inside of a parenthesis, and we've tried to show you that over and over, that those are counterintuitive. You don't use -2. You use 2. You don't use +4. You use -4. Now that's a point. -4, 2. Then you rise and run the right way. This one's also got a slope. Remember, that'll go down 2. It won't go up 2. And it's got a point. Hopefully you learned how I showed you to do the point. The x value's here. Okay. Another kind of problem I want to show you. This kind is exactly the same, except at the end you shade it. Same exact thing. There's a y-intercept, -2. Then I go rise 2 and run 3, and I put a dot. Rise 2, run 3, I put a dot, and then I draw my line through that. But then, do you remember this thing where if it's less than, you shade below? Less than, you shade below. And if it's a solid line versus a dotted, that kind, solid line. This kind, dotted line. May want to take notes on that. All of this stuff you could review right before the test. Like right before you look at the test, you could go, oh yeah, that's the kind where I draw a solid line. So this was the solid line kind. And then it's shade below it. Why? Because it's less than. That's the less than sign. So you shade like that. All right. This is like 1/3 of the test is graphing. There's a lot of graphing on the test. Would you agree you start at y is 1? Would you agree this has a slope even though there's no numbers there? It's like 1/1. And would you agree at the end you got to know whether it's solid or not, and hopefully you took notes on that. Solid versus dotted. And if it's greater, I hope you know which direction you would shade. And of course, there's a key for these. All right, next one. Solving the system by graphing. Now you got to graph 2 lines and see where they cross. It's that simple. You just got to graph both lines and see where they cross. So here I'd start at -6. I would go down 1 and over 1. Down 1, over 1, down 1, over 1. Okay. And then I would graph the other one starts at -2. I'm going to change colors here. And it rises 3 and runs 1. Now it seems like they would never touch, except you can go backwards too, of course. And I think you can see that they would touch right at that dot that I made really big in red. Do you get that this line and the blue line cross right there? So then that's the answer. Graph them both, see where they cross. Could you do it? I hope so, but in this one, you got to solve it for y first. Give yourself a little coaching. Put -x and -x here and here. That'll remind you. This one comes out to y equals -x plus 6. Here you'd add 3x to both sides. And then graph them both and see where they cross. All right, next page. If I didn't mention XY chart on this day, I should be fired. Because on graphing, you gotta be able to do an XY chart. It comes up so much in pre-calc, which is where some of you guys are gonna go next year. It comes up so much in FSD. You're graphing all the time in math. And how do you graph? With points. So do you get, I need points to be able to graph it. So you get some points. So how do you make points? You pick any number you want and you stick it in for X. I'm gonna pick 4. Now I'll admit I cheated. I looked over here and I realized 4 would be really nice. Pick numbers that are nice. I want it to work. So I picked 4 on purpose. And then the absolute value of 0 is 0, and then -0 is still 0, and then I add 2 and I get 2. See, I got my first point, and I get a bunch of points, and then I graph them. Four twos right there. There's a whole bunch of points you could pick. Everybody, just to make sure you understand what I'm talking about, put in 5. And make sure you get the right answer. Try 5. Zane, I'm gonna have you walk me through it. You put in 5, and then what happens at first?
You do 5 minus 4,
Which is?
1,
And then absolute value of 1, which is?
1,
And then you put on the negative.
negative 1 plus 2,
Negative 1 plus 2 is? 1. Did you guys get 5 comma 1? Good. And if you get enough dots, anyway, to be able to tell where, what this thing is. I'm going to get one more dot. I'm going to put in 3. Put in a 3. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. The absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Then I make it negative. It's negative 1 again. Negative 1 plus 2, 1 again. And that happens a lot. Don't think that that's wrong. It's right. And if you look at the graph, I think you'll understand. Look, it's a V shape. It's upside down. And the absolute values are supposed to be V shapes. So that makes sense. And this negative in the front tells you it's flipped over. All right. Well, what if I forgot what x squared looks like? Well, it'd be great if you remembered x squared looks like that. But if you forgot that, it's okay as long as you can make an XY chart. XY chart helps so much. It's your best friend in graphing. But a lot of kids screw up this one right here because they don't put the parentheses in. That happened a ton on our last test also. In the quadratic formula, some kids put in parentheses and some kids didn't. If you have the parentheses, the answer's different. If you don't use the parentheses, you get a wrong answer. You need these parentheses. So I'm going to stick in any number I want. I'm going to pick a negative one because that's where it gets complicated. I'm going to put in negative 2. Negative 2 squared goes first then. And negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which makes 4. Then this negative goes on the 4. So now it's negative 4 plus 3, which makes negative 1. I put in negative 2. I got negative 1. There's one free point for you. Then you get enough points, you'll see a U shape that's been flipped over and moved up. Do you remember those rules? That tells you how far up it moved. That tells you it's flipped over. Flipped over U shape that got moved up 3. You don't have to do it that way though, because your points will guide you. If you don't know how to do these points, please walk up and ask me later. XY chart for every single one of these things. I'd put in 4 on this one because square root of 4 minus 3 is 1. Square root of 1 works nice. So you got to pick carefully. I'll give you a free good idea. Put in 4 on number 16. All right, there's a few too many problems on this. So I'm going to say you can skip number 17. Cross that one off. How do you graph this one? Same exact way. XY chart. Find enough points. I know it's a quadratic, so I know it's a U shape. But I don't know exactly where it is. Well, stick in 1. See what you get. 1 squared is 1. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus the 1 is 7 plus 4 is 11. 1 comma 11. Free point. So, do you get all of the XY chart is used for like half of this worksheet? It's huge. If you don't know how to do those, please ask. All right. This is the kind where you just had to say what happened. Start at the beginning and say what happened. At 4 feet, the ball started and it got thrown up and it went all the way up to a vertex. Hint, keyword there, vertex. A vertex of the parabola, which was the highest it went, which was 20 feet high. And that happened at 1 second. And then it hit the ground right there, and it looks like it's maybe 2.1 seconds is when it hit the ground. So you just say what happened here, and what happened here, and throw in some math words like vertex. You could call this the x-intercept. But you have to throw in some math words. All right. Well, we've made it through the graphing practice worksheet. So if you finish the rest of that, that would be great practice for tonight, for the final. We'll do more of that tomorrow. And then there'll be another video that I'll record for that Tuesday, you know? As you know, I'm gonna be gone. That Tuesday, I'll have a video for you that's me explaining how to do that kind. And that's your last chance to practice. And then the final is, in this class, have you guys figured out yet what the schedule is for the finals?
It's posted.
You know what it is?
Yeah, it's in the, it was in the textbooks.
I believe you. I'm just asking, so for this hour, for first hour, will it be on, I would assume it will be on Wednesday then, right?
Yeah.
And is it like right away?
It's at 10.
It's at
No,
10.
no,
So it's like
It
a,
says 8 to 10.
8 to 10 is like a
a
morning
study
help time?
period, yeah.
Study period, okay. So then, 10 a.m. is your final in here. You got about 2 hours. I know that your final is not long. It's got, you know, it's hard to remember all this stuff, but it's not super long. You can be really happy you're not in honors right now, because the honors final is 52 questions and has, like, a lot of those are like R3s that are hard problems. So at least, I don't remember, but I know that yours kids usually finish with like at least a half hour left over, maybe even an hour sometimes. So the brightest, like the kids who are super straight A students are gonna probably finish and have at least an hour left. So bring a book or something to do. All right, so that's enough review for today. Now I gotta get those tests back to you. And there might be somebody that has not taken it yet, and then you should come up and talk to me now.